They say land is forever, but what happens when someone steals forever from you? 3 months after my grandfather's funeral, I drove out to his 47-acre property, and my jaw hit the ground. There were houses, streets, mailboxes, 36 homes, built right on my land. And at the center of it all stood the HOA president, Brenda, the so-called Karen of Whitefish. When I showed her the deed, she smiled and said, "You're trespassing." That's when I knew this wasn't just a mistake, it was a setup. So I locked the gate, called my lawyer, and made a promise. No one builds on my family's land and gets away with it. Before we dive in, make sure you hit like and subscribe because stories like this deserve to be heard. My grandfather always said, land isn't something you own, it's something you protect. He spent 40 years working those 47 acres in Whitefish, Montana, a quiet patch of pine forest, rolling fields, and a narrow gravel road that led to a small cabin and an old red barn. That place was more than property. It was memory, the smell of sawdust, the creek running behind the barn, the sound of his hammer echoing through the valley. When he passed, he left me that land in his will. Every tax receipt, every deed, every survey line, all in my name. Clean and simple. No disputes, no liens, no loans. It was the one thing in life I thought was untouchable. I live about 2 hours away, so after the funeral, I told myself I'd visit when I was ready. I needed time. Grandpa's cabin wasn't just wood and nails, it was where I learned to drive, hunt, and fix just about anything. It was the kind of land you build a future on. 3 months later, I packed my truck, loaded some tools, and hit the road. I remember the sunrise that morning, pink lights spilling over the pines. Everything felt peaceful until I turned onto the private road. Something felt off immediately. The gravel was freshly paved, the ditch lines manicured, and brand new streetlights stood where there used to be nothing but trees. My stomach dropped when I saw a gate, a big, polished, automatic one, blocking the road that used to lead straight to Grandpa's cabin. I pulled up to it, confused, thinking maybe the county had done something new. But then I saw it, a bronze plaque on the brick pillar. Whitefish Meadows, a private community. Managed by the HOA. For a few seconds, I couldn't even process it. HOA? Private community? On my land? I reversed, parked by the ditch, and pulled out my folder, the deed, survey maps, and coordinates. Everything matched. My landline, my signature, my family's name. Still, beyond that gate, I could see rooftops. Rows of them. Beige houses, cookie-cutter lawns, and mailboxes lined up like soldiers. There was even a playground, right where Grandpa used to keep his lumber pile. I remember standing there in silence, holding that deed with shaking hands, trying to convince myself this was some kind of clerical error. Maybe a temporary construction zone, or the county had redrawn boundaries. Something logical. But deep down, I knew someone had built an entire neighborhood here. Not by mistake. By design. The real question was, how? How could 36 houses rise on my land without me knowing? Who signed the permits? Who sold what wasn't theirs to sell? And more importantly, who was behind all of it? That's when I noticed a woman stepping out from behind the gate, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, confidence in every step. She looked straight at me and smiled. That was the day I met Brenda, the HOA president of Whitefish Meadows. And that's the day this story truly began. Brenda didn't walk, she marched toward me. Clipboard pressed to her chest, lips tight, sunglasses reflecting my truck. The kind of person who spoke like she already owned the ground she stood on. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice clipped and condescending. "Yeah," I said, holding up the deed. "You can start by explaining why there are 36 houses on my land." She let out a small, amused laugh, the kind people make when they think you're bluffing. "This is Whitefish Meadows. Private property. You're trespassing, sir." I almost laughed back. "Trespassing? Lady, my name's on this land." My grandfather paid taxes on it for 40 years. Brenda tilted her head. Well, maybe you should take that up with the developer. But as far as we're concerned, the HOA owns this community now. You'll have to leave before I call security. Security. On my land. That word stuck in my head like a splinter. I didn't argue, not yet. I took pictures. The gate. The sign. The homes. Every inch I could see. When she realized I was documenting it, she stepped closer. Photography isn't allowed inside the meadows, she snapped. Good thing I'm not inside, I said, snapping another photo. Her expression hardened. Suit yourself. She turned and walked back through the gate, punching a code into the keypad. The gate buzzed shut between us, a steel symbol of everything wrong with this moment. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in a motel outside town, spreading out every document I had, the deed, the plat maps, Grandpa's old tax forms. Everything lined up perfectly. The land was mine. And yet, someone had built an entire subdivision over it. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. The clerk, an older guy named Howard, pulled up the parcel file. What he showed me didn't make sense. According to county data, my land had been sold at a delinquent tax auction 2 years before my grandfather passed. Impossible, I said. He never missed a payment. Howard frowned, clicked through the file, and whistled low. You're right. His tax history's clean. Looks like someone forged the notice of delinquency and paid cash at the auction. Who? I asked. He leaned closer to the screen. A company called Whitefish Development Group, LLC. Address registered to Brenda Caldwell. My stomach turned. Brenda. The HOA president. The next few weeks were a blur of confrontation and dead ends. I filed reports, made calls, even spoke with a lawyer who told me the obvious, this was fraud, but without proof of forged documents, I'd be buried in court for years. Meanwhile, Brenda doubled down. The HOA mailed me violation notices claiming I had damaged community property by parking near the gate. They even threatened to fine me. Every letter was stamped with her signature. Then came the intimidation. A black SUV parked outside my cabin whenever I visited. Drones hovered over my truck. One morning, my gate padlock was cut clean off. That's when I realized this wasn't just about property. This was power. Brenda had connections. City officials, realtors, inspectors, everyone in her pocket. Whitefish Meadows wasn't just an HOA, it was a machine. But she didn't know one thing, I had started digging deeper. Through a friend at the local paper, I got connected with Marcus, an investigative journalist who covered housing fraud before. He looked over my documents and said one thing. Jake, this isn't just your land. This is part of a pattern. A pattern, across counties, of fake tax sales, ghost companies, and development trusts run by Brenda's network. Marcus promised to help me track it. We started piecing together names, shell LLCs, and permit signatures. It all traced back to Brenda's office. By now, the HOA wasn't just ignoring me, they were actively fighting back. False police reports. Trespass warnings. Even a restraining order attempt. But I wasn't backing down. If she wanted to play legal, I'd play smarter. I started installing trail cameras, keeping logs, and recording every word she said. And when one of the homeowners secretly reached out, a woman named Sarah, and told me they were being scammed too, I knew the tide was turning. Because Brenda might have built a kingdom on stolen land. But she built it on lies. And I was about to pull the foundation right out from under her. After weeks of threats, fake notices, and police warnings, I realized something. Brenda wasn't just corrupt, she was organized. Every paper trail I chased ended in a maze of shell companies and forged signatures. It was like trying to grab smoke. That's when Marcus, the journalist, said, "You need someone who can cut through legal fog." A lawyer who isn't afraid of the system. He introduced me to Cassandra Hale, a property rights attorney who'd handled corporate land disputes before. She met me in her downtown office, surrounded by stacks of case files. After scanning my documents for 10 minutes, she looked up and said, "Jake, this isn't just fraud. It's organized theft." Cassandra began tracing the sale records and permit filings. What she uncovered was shocking. The Whitefish Development Group that supposedly bought my land didn't legally exist until after the auction date. The county deed transfer? Stamped by a fake notary. We weren't just dealing with one crooked HOA. This was a ring. Over the next few weeks, we built a team, Cassandra handling the legal side, Marcus digging through corporate data, and me gathering every piece of on-site evidence. Trail cameras, drone footage, HOA letters, even late-night recordings of Brenda's meetings with city contractors. One night, Sarah, a homeowner inside Whitefish Meadows, called me, whispering so low I could barely hear. She said Brenda was forcing residents to pay community dues twice a month and threatening eviction if they asked questions. Sarah's husband, David, had found out their house didn't even have a valid occupancy permit. That was the moment I knew Brenda wasn't just a fraud, she was dangerous. Cassandra drafted formal complaints to the County Commission and the Montana Department of Justice. We filed everything: fraudulent auction, zoning violations, and property theft. But within days, those documents vanished from the county system. Then Marcus got an anonymous email, encrypted, no signature, containing a spreadsheet. It listed property parcel numbers, forged tax IDs, and buyer names linked to Brenda's associates in 3 different states. He sent it to Cassandra, who said quietly, "This isn't local anymore. This is federal." That's when we reached out to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division in Billings. Agent Martinez took our case seriously from the first call. He'd been investigating similar land fraud schemes involving falsified county tax records. He met us in person 2 weeks later, calm, direct, and methodical. He asked me one thing: "Jake, can you get Brenda talking on record?" That became our mission. Cassandra wired my phone, and Marcus prepped hidden cameras. It was time to stop running and start recording. Because Brenda thought she buried the truth under a pile of paperwork. But she forgot, I still owned the story. And this time, every word was going to count. Agent Martinez didn't waste time. When he walked into Cassandra's office, everything about him said federal. Calm, patient, and dangerous in silence. He spread out a series of maps and printouts, each one marked with red pins. "These are all properties with identical fraud patterns," he said. "Forged tax auctions. Fake notarizations. Same LLC chain. Brenda Caldwell's name pops up on 6 of them." My stomach tightened. She wasn't just running an HOA scam, she was building an empire out of stolen land. Martinez explained the plan. They couldn't just arrest her, they needed her to incriminate herself. Which meant one thing: someone had to go back in there, wearing a wire. Cassandra turned to me. "Jake, she'll talk to you. She thinks you're emotional, reckless. Use that. Make her brag." I agreed before she even finished. Because after everything she'd done, the forged papers, the threats, the lies, I wanted her words to burn her from the inside out. 2 days later, we staged it. Marcus set up cameras in my truck. The FBI team waited nearby, parked down the road. I had a tiny recorder under my shirt and a mic clip behind my collar. I drove up to the gate of Whitefish Meadows just after 6 p.m. The golden hour, the light sharp, the air quiet. The place looked too perfect, like a lie with paint on it. Brenda was there, clipboard as always, barking orders at a contractor. When she saw me, her face hardened instantly. "Oh, it's you again," she sneered. "Didn't the sheriff tell you to stay off private property?" "Funny," I said, stepping closer. "Because this private property is mine." She laughed, cold and confident. "Not according to the county, sweetheart. Maybe next time, pay your taxes." That's when I pushed just enough. Tell me, Brenda, I said. How'd you manage to build all this without the real owner noticing? You must have had help. She smirked. Oh, honey, help doesn't fall from the sky, you pay for it. And if you pay enough, no one in this town asks questions. Her voice dripped with pride, and the recorder caught every word. I kept her talking. About the developer, the auction, the county clerk friends. And then she said it. You think this is the first time I've done this? Right there. That was it. The confession. The moment she walked back toward her office, 3 black SUVs rolled in. FBI jackets everywhere. Brenda froze mid-step as Martinez stepped out and said, Brenda Caldwell, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and racketeering. The look on her face. I'll never forget it. That same fake smile she gave me at the gate, gone. For the first time, she was the one behind the fence. The night Brenda was arrested, the whole neighborhood went silent. Families peeked through curtains as flashing blue and red lights painted their new homes. Some looked confused. Some looked terrified. Others whispered Brenda's name like it was a ghost story that had finally come true. I stood near the gate, the same gate I'd locked weeks ago, watching as agents carried out boxes of files, laptops, and fake deeds. It didn't feel like victory, not yet. Cassandra walked over, her jacket draped over one arm. They'll seize everything she built here, she said quietly. And you'll get your land back. Legally this time. Marcus joined us, holding up his camera. You sure you don't want me to film this part too? I shook my head. No. This one's just for me. When the sun came up, the contractors were gone. The heavy equipment sat idle. 36 homes, perfectly lined up, now stood on my family's soil, built with lies. Weeks passed as the investigation spread wider. Turns out Brenda's scam reached 3 counties deep. She'd been forging deeds, bribing officials, and flipping stolen land for years. The HOA was just her shell game, a cover to hide her crimes. When the federal charges dropped, the story hit every local channel. HOA president arrested for massive land fraud. They showed her mugshot right next to my grandfather's old property records, side by side, truth finally visible to everyone. But the real moment of justice came in court. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, Brenda looked straight at me. No words. No fake smile. Just silence. It wasn't triumph I felt, it was closure. After the sentencing, Cassandra handed me a stack of papers. Your deed's clean now, she said. No more shadows on your name. I drove out to the land that night. The air was still. Crickets, wind, and the faint smell of pine, just like when my grandfather was alive. I walked to the center of the property, where his old barn used to stand, and placed a single lantern on the ground. This is for you, I whispered. They tried to erase us, but we're still here. Then I unlocked the gate, the same one that had once trapped me out, and left it open. Because justice doesn't mean keeping people out, it means making sure no one can ever take what's yours again. As I looked back one last time, the first rays of dawn hit the rows of empty houses. And for the first time in months, I smiled, not because I won, but because the land finally remembered who it belonged to.